Okay. Let's go back to sharing my screen. Share screen. Go to this. It is not allowing me to see this. Which one? Yeah. Okay, go back to here. We go back to here. Put them up, and there we go.
Je ne voudrais pas dissimuler une autre nation. Comme le Canadien, je ne suis pas Canadien. Je suis Nord-Américain. Même je ne suis pas Indien, parce que je ne viens pas des Indes. Alors, l'Amérique, Nord-Amérique, oui, c'est moi. Nord-Américain. Language.
Now, folk, am I back to sharing? And can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, welcome and thank you for joining us today. As you know, our three key speakers are Stephen McFadden, Jean Letellier, Sunbo, and Julia Blani. And we're really grateful that they've joined us to share a little bit about how we keep spreading the message and work of Grandfather William Commanda. And so today's presentation focuses on a book that was launched at the GEO Indigenous Water Summit in October 2023 by Space for Innovation, as organized by our friend Diane Mastriacci. And it included the launch of our publication, Indigenizing Education for Climate Action. I had done a chapter entitled Tracking Climate Action Discourse in Indigenous Elder William Commanda's work for responsible and respectful relationship with Mother Earth. And this is what we're sharing with you folk today. I hope you can all hear me properly. And if not, please indicate something in the chat bar, and our colleague Emily will help us resolve those kinds of issues. On the right, you see the landing page of our new Circle of All Nations website. And for those of you who don't know, Grandfather Commanda was named Ojigwanang, Morning Star, for many a light in an ever-darkening world. And he's the Indigenous elder for North America, Algonquin of the Ottawa River watershed, and his work focused on Indigenous wisdom, peace building, prayer for the land, and knowledge. He was a carrier of a sacred wampum heritage, and it inspired him to gather people together and share. It inspired deep reflection for he himself, and it inspired teaching and sharing. I'm not going to go into great detail about Grandfather Commanda's background, because you'll see that our colleagues will be sharing perspectives, but the PowerPoint will be available so that you'll be able to track how he became from a kindergarten dropout, became a twice honored PhD recipient, who we then researched. And so we considered him a documented and honorary PhD academic, and an officer of the Order of Canada. And when we say this is one of Canada's highest honors for people and who desire a better country. And we say Grandfather Commander desired a better world. And that's what brings us to this important moment where we are conscious that he prayed constantly for Mother Earth. And in the midst of climate change, we know how important his prayer was. And he prayed constantly for peace. And in this world of ever dismal war and strife and violence, we take his prayers to heart, and we hope you will all hold them in your own hearts in however makes sense to you over the next hour. Discussions of identity will show that I'm actually not an Indigenous person, but I began to become aware of the wisdom of Indigenous peoples when I was a student in South Africa, studying the literature of Peter Abrams, a South African writer in the 70s. In my life in Canada, I worked in the criminal justice system, then in Indigenous justice, then met Grandfather Commander, then supported his work. And he liked to take me to his meetings because I was the political message. I was the real Indian and not him. And in this process, he began that formal indigenizing knowledge for climate change, for peace building, and for all sorts of things. Special moment with us. So we are in this process of presenting that chapter in an academic textbook, are abstracting and conceptualizing the thinking and co-creating with William Commander. And our conceptual medicine wheel triggers our articulation of the epistemology. And our work was about indigenizing knowledge. And so what I've been doing here is taking the conceptual things that have guided our indigenous, our grassroots Circle of All Nations work, and shown how they have brought us to the academy. And our purpose here today is to show the linking of multiple knowledge streams to help us prepare better for the challenges of the present day and into the future. In this image here, you see an article in a geospatial magazine, a trade magazine, where we have presented Grandfather Commander and his mapping vision. And we explain how we understand North America to be Turtle Island. And the very first image you see there is actually of a live turtle. Okay, so this image here takes us to Turtle Island and why we say Indigenous peoples knew things about the land, about the earth that others didn't. And one of them was they could conceptualize turtle in this great North American continent. And that is how, for them, it received its name. In this slide here, you see we're talking about the core themes of our Circle of All Nations work, the ideological foundations. And then on the right-hand side, you see the animative actions that Grandfather initiated to make the ideals, the vision, the dreams manifest as concrete realities. And of course, with climate change, COVID borderlessness, the tipping point, we're now in a global digital village, and are all needing to deal with the crises of our times. And our key priority with this effort is to integrate different styles in knowledge generation, from Indigenous, grassroots, the NGO voice, from government and academy. And the point is to build bridges to integrate diversity and to affirm a common purpose. finding our rightful places on the penultimate provider, Mother Earth, with respect, responsibility, and reverence, embracing our common heritage as cosmic beings, and remembering Gina Daganok. It is all interrelated. And sometimes we say policy is not enough. One needs reflection, relationality, integrity, and self-respect. And then these are images that show the ongoing efforts of grandfather's work. I'm going to race through them actually because I want to move on to some of our other participants and presenters. But here you'll see a listing of the multiple activities grandfather undertook for climate change. In 2020, I made a presentation to the Club of Rome on the indigenous view to environmental stewardship of grandfather commanders. And he advocated for environment and at several important national and international events. The 1987 National Aboriginal Conferences, which was the first time Indigenous voices came together with federal and political leadership in this country, grandfather talked about the urgent environmental issue. He felt the survival of the Indigenous peoples was integrated with the environment and the environmental, addressing the environmental challenges. He was actually at COP19, in the pre-conference of partners, United Nations conference, the pre-Earth summit in 1991. And he did pipe ceremonies over there to ignite the sense of a relationship with a living Gaia, a living Mother Earth. And what is happening right now is the COP28 deliberations. And some of our colleagues, including Space for Innovations, have taken our voice into that international platform. So also has Climate Coaching Alliance, and we have representatives of that organization with us here today too. So thank you. So our voice is here very much local in Canada, but it's also on the global stage, and it's taking grandfather's voice across time, and we hope into the future. It was also the Cry of the Earth conference, species at risk interventions, water life workshops. Those are the kinds of things grandfather did. So I was invited to contribute a chapter to this important book, which was launched in October. And I acknowledge the assistance of my professor, Professor Fraser Taylor at Carleton University, who has supported my research into grandfather commander's work. I take a grounded theory approach to examine the theme of Indigenous knowledge and its manifestation as epistemology and teaching in the chapter of the book. The idea is that for good practice reflects the presence of considered theorization. So with respect to the discourse of Circle of All Nations, each colleague acknowledges the inspiration from William Commander's Indigenous approach. Indeed, a Mexican grandmother, Abuela Margarita, described this as grandfather breathing life and spirit into her work and mission. Our practice was not accidental or unintentional. I'm also examining the discursive reach and the ongoing animation of grandfather's discourse. His living work is co-created by many, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous, and this is consistent with the laws of nature and the biodiversity principles that underpin our work, as well as the spirit of Jinawe Daganuk. This informs our knowledge-generating research and inspires hope in the challenging future of climate change and strife. This first image is the image of an octopus that we drew over a shell oil symbol when some of us who are represented in the chapter in the book were protesting test drilling on the wild coast of the Indian Ocean of South Africa. And that challenge continues at the UN conference this very year. I include here the links for both the book on indigenizing education for climate action and also our particular chapter. And I want to say now, just very briefly, about our collaborators for today's session. Jean Letellier, who many of us know as Sunbo, contributed to my references in our thesis. I included academic and grassroots references, and he made a massive effort to collect every piece of video documentation of grandfather accessible on the internet. And so I've been ever so grateful for that work. But we've also followed his work for environment, on indigenous issues, and for connection with nature. And we're grateful to have you as part of our session here today. Stephen McFadden is the person who has actually known grandfather the longest. And he documented grandfather's voice from the 80s and the 90s, including with respect to the epic Sunbow 5 walk across North America. And now he knows grandfather's influence on his work in deep agroecology. Julie Blaney took seeds from grandfather's home to Europe and in South America, asserting the lifeblood of water in her documentary, The Water Challenges in Bolivia. It was actually Julia's birthday yesterday, so thank you so for joining us during this weekend of your celebration. Other documentaries were for a walk for the protection of the forest, and I'll show you a video documentary done by a youth at the launch of COP17 in 2011 at the end of our session. And of course, we're in this process of honoring Earth, honoring sacred sites. And finally, an image created by a student using animation and technology to show that grandfather embraced technology and its potential also to influence. And one of our new colleagues over there, Maurice, here's our symbol for the legacy of hope. We hope we'll hear a little bit more about your work at some stage, if not today, in future sessions. And that then brings me to the end of the credentials for our presentation. So I'll stop sharing that screen. And here we are. So just a little check-in. Is everybody able to hear and follow us reasonably well? It's going okay? Perfect. So then I will say that my agenda will take me to you, Stephen. And in addition to that very brief introduction, please feel free to share more details about yourself and your work. Thank you. You can see it okay.
Hi. Well, good morning, everyone from Albuquerque, New Mexico in the United States. Has my PowerPoint come up at Agroecological Inspirations?
Yes, I see it.
Good. Well, I met grandfather, I don't know if it was 88 or 89 at the time. I was living in New Hampshire and came up to Ottawa on a business trip, and then had the opportunity to go up to the Kitigan-Zibi reservation and spent a long afternoon sitting in his living room and listening to him. And the interview that I conducted that day became part of Profiles in Wisdom, one of my first books. And then later, as Romola mentioned, grandfather became the spiritual advisor for a walk from the East Coast, the Atlantic Ocean, to the Western Gateway at the Pacific Ocean. Took 8 months of walking. And our sky sign was the sunbow, or the whirling rainbow, which is a rainbow that goes a full 360 degrees around the sun. And then I wrote that up, Odyssey of the Eighth Fire. It's up on the internet freely. And not only grandfather Commanda is a distinctive voice throughout that, but many other traditional elders that we met as we walked from coast to coast. And then more recently, I have produced a little book. I don't know if you can see it, Native Knowings. Well, whatever, I'm holding it in my hand. And he certainly plays an important part in that. One of the things that he says, as quoted in the introduction, is that while Native people don't have all the answers, they do have many of them, particularly here on Turtle Island, where the indigenous presence has been a reality for many, many thousands of years. And so his voice was very inspiring for me as well as for many others. Now, as Romola took up the task of writing this chapter for the book, she asked me to make some contributions about agroecology, which in simple terms is the marriage of agricultural production and ecological awareness and practice. And grandfather's voice is always in the back of my mind as I'm writing. And I went on and completed a book called Deep Agroecology, Farms, Food, and Our Future. And I'm happy to report that agroecology is a global movement. It's not just happening here in Canada and the United States and Mexico, but really around the world. And it is not only a philosophy and a practice, it's also a science and it's a social movement. It's a social movement in particular because it recognizes that the people who are out in the farm fields doing the labor and the people who are in the factories processing what comes from the field, and then the people who are stocking the shelves in our supermarkets or preparing the dishes in our restaurants. That's a whole sacred chain of relationship, of course, with the natural world. And the indigenous perspective of respect, or as Romola has so artfully re-articulated again and again, Jinwe Daganuk, the realization that everything is in relationship with everything else. That's not a theory, that's a reality. And so the indigenous voices, not only from grandfather, but from many other places around the world, are very much at the heart of what is known today as agroecology. So I just want to say something about the word. Of course, it's Latinate and sounds very abstract and intellectual, but it's not. It's shovels in the earth and soil and plants coming up and the billions and billions of life forms that inhabit the soil, that give life to the plants, that give life to the animals, including our human species. So at any rate, I'm at this stage, after having written a great number of books, honoring the indigenous tradition. I'm really, I'll be 75 in another 2 weeks, and I'm still standing. I'm a little proud of that, still in good health. Maybe I'll make it as far as Grandfather Commanda did. But at any rate, I'm grateful for every day, and I'm certainly grateful for the inspiration that Grandfather gifted to me with his presence and his teachings. And it's my intention to keep bringing that into the agroecological arena because it has tremendous impact on climate change, as well as the health of the soil, the plants, the animals, and ultimately the people. So I could say a lot more, but I think that's enough for a few minutes. Unless someone has a specific question, I will pass. Oh, I know, I didn't even show my slides.
Yes, I was going to say, yes, please.
Okay, well, there's a fire, one of the 7 fires. I'm assuming everyone knows something of that tradition. I see a gentleman who's the Ironwood Log Project, and I think that's fascinating. I want to hear some more about that, certainly part of the 7 Fires teachings. Here's a photograph of United Nations headquarters in New York City, Turtle Island, Manhattan. Grandfather Commanda and Frank and I think Peter DeConti were all part of the delegation that spoke at the UN with the Hopi the Utanushini, the Maya, the Lakota, other elders. It was a historic presentation. And here's a photograph of grandfather displaying the Seven Fires wampum belt with Frank to his right. And I believe that's Peter to his left.
That's Edward.
Edward DeConti, and they were supportive of him there. Here's another photo, and of course you can recognize Romola there wearing her cowboy hat, and grandfather and me. That was a happy visit. And finally, here, if you can see, I don't know if the text shows up, but it mentions that agroecology is an approach to farming and food that's clean, sustainable, just. I want to emphasize just. That's so important. Our farm workers are the foundation of everyone's diet, no matter what it might be. So it's humane and egalitarian, not just hierarchical corporate structures. And then wanting to mention that it's a global movement rooted in systems theory, which is the recognition that many parts and factors make up a greater whole. And you're part of it. If you eat, and I'm assuming we all do, then every dollar that you invest in food is a causal factor. Whether you're buying, good, clean, healthy food that has been raised in a just set of social circumstances, or some sort of a corporate hierarchical. And that's a vast subject. So at any rate, here's the last slide for me, and it just has a person here pondering. I really do recognize agroecology as our main chance for reckoning with the serious climate and other environmental problems, including the pollution of our oceans and the vast dead zones created by runoff from agricultural operations. So agroecology is a remedy to all of that, and an important social and environmental movement. So thanks for the opportunity to share.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And okay, so maybe you can end your screen share.
Oh, okay. I don't know how to do that. Let's see. Stop share.
Stop share, and there you are. And thank you very much.
Try on.
I don't know if people can see me, but just the other day, I visited grandfather's daughter, Evelyn Diwashi, in Maniwaki, and she passed me this old version of your book, Profiles in Wisdom. So thank you. Your energy is with us.
Hey, Rich.
Thank you. Okay, so now let me move on to Jean Letellier, Sunbow, Ironwood Log, and maybe you can share with us now.
Sure, certainly.
There you are, in your new abode.
Yeah, just moved here last month. Well, first, thank you for the invitation, Romola, and for organizing this meeting, and for all the work you've done to keep grandfather's legacy and to share his teaching to all who have taken part in this effort. Miigwech. So I'm more known as Sunbow, which is a author's name and a spiritual name for 40 years now, that I received in a Vision Quest while in Mexico. And I had no idea then, but I found out just in 97, like 13 years later, that grandfather Commander had used the name Sunbow for his historic march across the United States from coast to coast, which to me was a sign of a great connection, because I was starting to get familiar with grandfather around those years. And the Sunbow, which he chose for emblem for this march, is also my medicine shield, the rainbow around the sun. So I've been, just to introduce myself, I'm part Cree, sisters and cousins from Saskatchewan. And I've been, since a young age, always interested and attracted by Indigenous spiritual values and ways. And that led me to around 40 years of traveling around numerous dozens of indigenous nations, where from South, Central, and mostly in North America, as well as in Australia later, where I got to find this same common thread, same universal values and all those cultures, ancestral cultures, about caretaking of the world, of nature, of creation we're given to live with. All these journeys brought me to many others with many teachings, like starting early with the Hopi since 93, and I went numerous times there, at least 15 since. I was adopted in the Coyote clan of Hatvilla in 87. So this was all before I got to meet grandfather. First heard about grandfather Commander while I was living in a shamanic community where we were doing native ceremonies in early 80s. And I first saw him in 92 at the Anishinaabe encounter with the Anishinaabe gathering. But that time we didn't speak. And starting in 97, I started attending his Circle of All Nation gathering, spiritual gathering, where I attended for 11 years. And it was the most amazing shamanic medicine encounter of all the several I've seen that gathered people, medicine people, teachers, and learners from around the world. I must say, grandfather Kanda was probably one of my top greatest guides in this life, for having been in contact with him over years. And so all these years brought me to become an author. I've written since decades, but the last 8 years I published 8 books. The most relevant for this conversation is my last series, autobiographic series, which I have copies here. It's called Contemporary Shamanic Journeys. That's volume 1. Volume 2, I started introducing grandfather in the last chapters there, and there's volume 3, which is 650 some pages. There's a lot of, I mean, that's the decade I was very involved or close with grandfather, and there's a lot of his teachings and what I've lived and witnessed with him. Including grandfather has blessed some of my greatest achievements, which I can mention. The coming of the World Rainbow Family and gathering on the Anishinaabe homeland in Laverne Park in 2004, which before we went to Brazil and Costa Rica gatherings there to circle and console with the people. But before that, we went to meet grandfather and ask for his advice and blessings on all this endeavor, and he gave us the blessing, invited us to come on the Anishinaabe homeland. with 2,000 people from 50 countries at the time. The next big thing grandfather really launched for me was the Ironwood Log Project, as you can see on my which was inspired by the Seven Fire Prophecy. It says that at the time of a seventh fire, which most people consider it is now, where all the nations come from the four directions, looking for the wisdom of the elders left behind. It is said there will be an ironwood log that will be found, in which the teachings and sacred ways will be kept and saved on scrolls. A lot of people look for an actual ironwood log out of ironwood, which might exist. However, this inspired me the vision to use a camera as the ironwood log to archive and gather the teachings and sacred ways that can be shared with a wider audience and kept for future generations. And the project started in 2008. We gathered a small team of camera people interested in, and Romola facilitated the start of this, inviting us at grandfather home. It was the first time I ever used a video camera. And we did that, the first film I ever made about grandfather. It was a 50-minute documentary that was presented at his gathering that year. So there's a lot to say about grandfather, and what I can say is that personally, he's been a beacon of light. It's been a very great guidance for me and for thousands of others. And I wouldn't be where I am on this path without his teachings and blessings. Because I had also the blessing to meet him personally and share personal insights and projects, and he was always very supportive and very wise in providing advice and all kind of topics. The last volume is called, I just showed, it's called Spiritualist Pacifism and Wisdom Keepers, because that's what I've been involved in all those years in supporting environmental causes everywhere, most often indigenous-led actions. So spiritual activism is doing actions as ceremonies, as prayers. We don't protest, we protect, and we bring consciousness and awareness. We are all related, and every life is sacred, and we must protect it. So I'm not sure how long. So that's most of it. If there's more time or things to say or questions, I can add.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And maybe after Julia, there might be questions, or then we can just do more of a formal discussion. But the interesting thing for me is, yes, that both you and Stephen thus far are connected also around the Sunbow icon, because that was the Odyssey of the Seventh Fire that he wrote about. But yeah, it is intriguing the way everything is connected and interconnected. And I'm grateful that you've joined us and grateful that you've shared. And I do remember the creation of that documentary in that tiny living room space with all that big equipment. Yes, exciting moments. We'll probably talk a little bit more about that in a little while. Thank you. Now maybe we can invite Julia to join us on the main screen here. Are you there, Julia? There she is. Hello. Bonjour.
Yes.
There she is.
Hola desde La Paz. I'm here in Bolivia. I hope you can hear me, see me.
Yes, and I don't know if anybody can see me as well, but I'm holding in my hands one of your little documentaries, Identité, that you created before this very important one. And so, yeah, please share. And bonne fête, happy birthday for yesterday. Thank you for waking up so early today to join us. And thank you for being patient through all our confusion. Pleasure to see you.
Yes, thank you, Romola, for all you have done. Thank you to everybody present here. So for the people who have talked just before, I will try to speak English. It's not so easy for me, but I will try to do it. And it was very interesting because I see that as I have learned in Maniwaki, that it's really a circle, no? And that we are all interrelated. We are all part of a big thing, no? That we don't even know, but we are part of this, no? And that's I didn't have the chance to know grandfather because we arrived. I make documentary and we arrived with a caravan of French and Canadian people just after he was gone, grandfather. So we make something to honor him, the gathering, to honor him just after he was gone. And what I saw in Maniwaki was a lot of love first. And everything was in circle. That was a great lesson for me. There were many great people like Abuela Margarita, many great people there. And also I've learned about the wampum of the eighth fire and that we all have to unite. And that's for me, I was young at this age, and that was a great lesson, no? That we all have to unite, even if we are not really in the same canoe. We have to unite, no? We have to go the same way or we will lose everything we know and we love. So that was a very important lesson that grandfather told us and that I learned from First Nation people from North America. In North America, not from North America, and in Turtle Island, must be no? Better. So I've learned this a lot of things in Turtle Island, and so after we came back to make this documentary about identité, that gave because as I know making documentary, the idea was to give the voice to the First Nation people because that's the most important. I cannot speak for them, you know. So I just can give them a little space and diffusion to talk about all the things that history first that we don't know in Europe and many countries. We don't know this history. And after all the culture and the things they know, because that's very important, as other participants say, you know, that we have to share this culture and this knowledge. And nowadays I'm in Bolivia because I want now to give this voice and this place to First Nation in Bolivia, because here we are in a country that is where things are very difficult. Maybe even more if we have to give qualifications than in Turtle Island, because it's not a poor country, it's a very rich country, but corporations are extracting all the rich things here. And we made a documentary about water. And so we made this documentary about water a few years ago, 5 years ago, and it went all over the world. Another time, made a circle around the world to to share with people all around the world, because the water is really one thing as agroecology, you know, it's one thing that unites us all. We all need water and we all need food to live, no? There is no other way. So it can, even if I'm talking about water in Bolivia, it can interest people all over the world, because we are all connected by this element, and we have to protect it. As the other friend says, no, we have to protect the elements. We are here, I think we are here on Earth for this. We can be powerful, and we have to protect realmente Mother Earth, Pachamama, you know, as we say in Bolivia. No? And now the thing is that I'm coming back in Bolivia 5 years after this documentary. The documentary, it was perfect for the documentary, prices and all the things. But I came back in Bolivia and I see the things that are worse. I was in a trip in Bolivia. There are some rains, but 1 month ago there were no more water in Bolivia. Even the biggest lake in the second biggest lake in South America, Lake Titicaca, was very down now, the level of water. So now I think that we really have to act. It's good to protect, but we have to act. There is no other way. We have to unite, as a one pool said, no? We have to unite, and we have to make this circle, and we have to protect, and we have to act now, because I can tell you that from South America, the situation is really worsening, and quite rapidly, with climate change. And so now the idea is made documentary, but linked with concrete action. You know, I'm going to go to communities with indigenous people from all Bolivia, and we are gonna see what we can do concretely now, to help, for instance, against polluting waters now, against burning Amazonia, because there are a lot of burnings now. It's really amazing. 1 month ago here in La Paz, you couldn't breathe due to the smoke of the burnings of some people that are burning Amazonia, because they want to put here some soya to feed their girl ecological friend knows that, no? That some soya for the coast, no? So it's really concerning. What is in, and there are Bolivian people who made this, but they make this because some more powerful people tell them that they don't have other way, you know, to survive, in order to survive, that they make this to make money, and it's an easier way for them to make money. But there are corporations, European, American corporations, Chinese corporations, that make them that. And that's really, we have to use our power that we have, that as I have, for instance, as documentary maker, that you have as a people that can communicate with other people to say what is really happening. Because when I see, for instance, what's happening in COPs nowadays in Dubai, it's so fake. We don't have time, because it's good to talk, but really I see in 5 years how Bolivia has changed. I think that we don't have really so much time now to talk. We have to act now. And that's it, I think.
Miguel, thank you for that passionate message. And it's so very true and so important. And yeah, so many of us are really, really worried about how so much of the world doesn't understand, it doesn't see this reality. You know, when I mentioned in 1987, grandfather put this message out on the public stage in Canada, when they were worrying about Indigenous rights. And he said, look around, look at the pollution of the water, look at the earth, look at the air, we can't breathe. And he said to the leadership, we have to remedy it before the end of time. And that was 1987. And he didn't stop waiting for the politicians to remedy it. He moved into action, and you guys and us guys are the living animation of the action that has been ignited, but also needs to continue. And obviously you're raising, a really urgent perspective right there in Bolivia. And the creators of the Geo-Indigenous Summit focused on water. And it is really interesting because they're the people who are also launched our book, Indigenizing Knowledge for Climate Action, where our chapter and where your voice is included. And they did something very interesting in their conference. They had indigenous leadership from across the world and linked with voices of young people involved in technology. And the indigenous communities presented issues they wanted like help to resolve and address. And they did a hackathon where, all the young minds started to brainstorm how they could help. And you could see there was a genuine interest in re-engaging and connecting. And in this process, both were being active and building relationship and seeing a common purpose. So your perspective here is just like perfect in the context of what that book and that community is attempting to do. But totally the challenges are very worrisome. Thank you, Julia, for that. But is there anybody else who wants to say something right now before I turn to our documentary video? I see Linda's hand up, please. Please, Linda.
If there's time, I'd just like to...
Yes, please. Thank you.
Just like to say a few words about how honoured I am to be here. And I felt really emotional through the whole, everybody sharing, really feeling, huge compassion for everyone on the earth, our mother. And I'm absolutely appalled at my ignorance about other cultures, the indigenous cultures. However, what really brought me to this meeting was the banner that came with it, with the yellow beads and the black pattern and the red line. Now, I had a dream about 15 years ago when I was shown, I thought it was on a blanket. I didn't realise even what it was. That's how ignorant I am. And then I remembered it when I saw it yesterday. I thought, oh my goodness, I've got to go. How you get shivers and you have to be somewhere. And this, all you've been talking about, I was in New Zealand for a long time and had a bit to do with the indigenous people there, the Waitaha, who have profound knowledge of living in peace and matriarchal culture. And so I've had a bit to do with them. And we were also organic farmers, working sustainably with the earth and regeneratively, actually, using, energy as well. So I just feel right at home. And I want to thank you for all you're doing, and just let's keep going. Yeah, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thanks for noticing our bead border. This is one of the ways we brand our Circle of All Nations work. We created that quite a long time ago, and it aligns in part with the message of the Seven Fire Prophecy and the hope, the prayer that we would all come together. Grandfather Commander was considered the carrier of the Seven Fire Prophecy wampum belt at the time of the unfolding of the seventh fire. And this was a fire of choice, really. a choice for a pathway into increasing destruction, the kinds of things that he and his ancestors had observed happening over the past 100 years, really, or a pathway to reconciliation and building for a shared life on Mother Earth. And actually, at the time that he died, 2011, he did not believe the eighth fire of hope had been lit. And of course, we have seen in the past decade how much more challenging things have become with respect to our relationships with each other. And now we're at like the most dismal stage in our relationships with others. We have said Grandfather Commander was born on the 11th of November in 1913, on the eve of the First World War, the first global war. And we have seen him as a beacon of light, shining light into an ever darkening world. And really, when I suggest we all find our way to offer our best feelings, our best prayers, our best thoughts for this crisis that humanity is at, and for the blindness in some of the discussions that are happening on our news and at the conference of partners. But Mary Sue's emphasis on the voice and the power of each of us is consistent really with how a story grandfather told me of an old indigenous elder, and how deeply connected he was with nature and the laws of nature. And a tornado was coming at his home, and he readied his pipe and he smoked his pipe and prayed for protection, and the tornado went over his face. Now, in our Circle of All Nations work, first we had the flooding, unprecedented flooding of the Ottawa River in the last 2 or 3 years, in 2017 to be precise. In 2019, I hosted the last Circle of All Nations people gathering in a building. And it was the time we had the first major tornado here in Ottawa. And that coincided with the onslaught of the COVID pandemic. And it led us to isolation. We were no longer able to hold gatherings in person. We started to do actually our first Facebook Live video to connect with people anyway. And Stephen McFadden joined us in 2020 when we did the first ever Facebook Live global gathering. And anybody from all over the place joined us. And we shared and chatted, and we remembered the Millennium Peace Gathering. I see we've got someone else coming, and somehow people are confusing the timing of our event. But in any case, the urgency of our times is really upon us now. I am going to now just say thank you for joining. I'm going to show the video clip that was created by Trishi Villa in 2011, released at the time of COP17 in South Africa. And it was done by a youth. And as beautiful as it is, it's so dismaying to see that so little has changed since then. So I'm going to share my screen, show that, and then we'll return to the conversation for those of us who want to linger on and continue to chat. Okay, just a sec. Thank you. So screen share that.
rising sea levels to deadly heat waves. We've taken nature's course and changed its way. A probable root cause for conflicts and war, and the economy gets affected too, leaving more people poor. Aggravated disease spreading like gossip, leaving us feeling like we are all held hostage. Plus a loss of biodiversity, habitat, plants, animals, and all species.
Okay, so there we are back here, and first to say thank you very much to all of you for joining us. I'm happy to continue conversations with whoever wants to share. So yeah.
If I may.
Yes, please.
I saw earlier in the comments someone asking about the documentary on grandfather. This one and many others, I made probably 3 videos on grandfather or more, and on other elders as well, interviews, documentaries. So they're all available on my Ironwood Log Project channel. If you type Ironwood Log Project, you probably would find that in the first or second place on Google. Otherwise, you can go to Isuma TV, ISUMA.tv, which is the largest online native video platform, where my channel is there. And if I may add, well, for people who would be interested in my books, they can be found on my website, scenicsasquatch.com, where also there's other information about different works I do, namely with the paranormal.
Miigwech for sharing that, and so great to see you. And of course, the other thread I had wanted to mention, The Rainbow family joined grandfather's gathering many years ago, and initially it was rather a new face in an already very diverse group. And well, we found our Rainbow friends taught us a lot about recycling. I think they used to help us. We had thousands of people come to our gatherings, and they dump their garbage and mix things up and stuff like that. And our friends would help us sort recyclables and things, so very much a connection with nature that grandfather recognized like right away. Yeah, so thanks for the ongoing engagement with Circle of All Nations, and best for your work in the forward. And yeah, we'll share links about your books and things like that as best we can in the Circle space.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Julia, do you want to say anything more? And I don't know. Yeah, did you?
I just want to thank you everybody. It was a great time, and I hope we're gonna see us again and make a lot of things. Act.
Okay, action.
Yeah.
Okay, take care. Enjoy your birthday. Bye. Bye. I don't know if anybody else wants to share. Do you want to say something, Emily? I ask you to unmute. I must ask you to. Emily is our new friend who lives in Gatineau, is from Canada, but spent the last 20 years in Switzerland and has returned home and is, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, hello, everybody. Is there a problem with the hearing my voice in the back?
Oh, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, I thought it might have echo. I was really happy to join this session and to see how grandfather's work and Romola keep on sharing his work, how it impacts everyone. For me, I discover his work in Switzerland. I'm French Canadian, and I've moved a while ago in Switzerland, and through Romola's work on promoting grandfather's legacy, I connect to his work, and it has also really profound me. It was a connection between his works and my thoughts. And unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to meet him in person, but through what Romola is doing, it's like keeping him alive. And it has, how can I say, such a deep impact on the younger generation, because his wisdom is still here and impacting us in a greater way. And for me, concretely, I'm still building my project, and as I changed the continent, now I'm based in Canada. I have everything to build again, my life to restart and to build everything. But somehow, his energy is with me and giving a lot of strength. And also in what I will create, act, like it was said previously, on protecting the environment, and also always keep in mind in my project to work together as a team, as brothers and sisters. This is like how William Commanda has impacted me. And listen to all of your stories is very sorry, I'm searching my word, but it's very great to see as well how it keeps on going. It keeps on happening, and many bonds can be created through events like Romola is doing right now. I think it helps us like connect, and I think it will slowly also comment dire?
Parlez français.
Ok, merci. Ce que je veux dire, c'est que en se réunissant comme ça, au fait, ça nous stimule, ça nous donne des idées pour créer nos projets, pour aller de l'avant dans le concret, comment poser des actions concrètes en écoutant parler de Julia. Moi, ça fait des liens avec les choses que j'ai en écoutant Sunbo, son histoire de comment grand-père William l'a impacté et les livres qu'il a écrits. Ça m'inspire pour aussi mes projets. Et j'ai envie d'en savoir plus sur tout ce qui est créé, tout ce qui est fait et comment des liens peuvent être créés pour que l'ensemble de nos intentions et de nos projets puissent avoir un plus grand impact parce qu'ils sont tellement positifs. Et c'est des belles... c'est ça qu'on a besoin d'entendre en 2023, maintenant en 2024, dans quelques semaines. C'est ça, je pense que le monde a besoin d'entendre des histoires comme ça. Et c'est fabuleux ce cercle que Romola a créé. Et le fait de pouvoir se retrouver et de se rencontrer, ça fait beaucoup de bien. Et je voulais vous dire à tous merci de m'inclure dans ce beau cercle et d'avoir pris le temps de m'écouter aujourd'hui. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Merci. And yes, there's a connection there, Julia, because Emily was showing me many photographs of her friends in South America recently. So the connections are happening and they're live and they're vibrant. So miigwech. Maurice, thank you. And Emily for joining us. If you'd like to say a word, we pass the feather to you. It's hard to do the circle with the technology, but you're welcome to say something. We see a good heart there. So miigwech. And yeah, so Linda, thank you for joining us and for sharing. And so let's then say goodbye. We're very much alive on Facebook because that's our way of connecting with public at large. This is the first time we've done the Zoom, which makes it a little bit more inclusive. And it's partly because we want to encourage the discussions, but really we'll want to share it with our friends who can't join us at this moment. And we have a Circle of All Nations YouTube channel where we'll keep these recordings, and hopefully you'll join us for other sessions, and maybe we'll have more focused discussions on issues that are important to you. Miigwech, merci beaucoup. Very best for the upcoming season, and keep safe and keep well, and let's keep our best energies moving forward. Miigwech. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Romola. Blessings.
Thank you. Bye-bye.